In the beginning of time, the Marmak tribe dwelt in the sea. They were beautiful creatures with unique eyes that sparkled like precious stones. However, their ferocious nature brought boundless suffering to the people that entered the sea. When the Marmak, using their magic that was beyond the control of humans, attempted to monopolize the sea, Emperor Bavenberg was forced to declare war on the Marmak. The two sides that were exhausted after a long and bloody war finally came to a compromise. The Marmak sent a girl to the empire as a guarantee of a treaty. July 19th, 768, according to the imperial calendar. The central annex of the imperial palace. The maids are tearing up the flowers. One of them asks if they are still making wreaths of pansies at this time. The other replies to her that how do you know, the last time they left the outhouse was over a decade ago. A girl came up to them and announced that the sun was about to set. They should get ready to go inside. The imperial maid, Melina Ludovic von Hanover. The maids cheered her, asking what color of pansies she thought would best suit Lady Cordelia. She sighed, replying that flowers were certainly nice, but if they wanted to properly prepare for tomorrow's birthday party, they'd better hurry up and… Before she could speak, she stumbled and fell into the water. Before the maids could cry out in horror, the girl was already rushing toward them. She jumped after Lady Melina into the water. Melina opened her eyes and saw the girl in front of her. She looked very beautiful, her long turquoise hair blurred in the water. The girl held out her hand, telling her that Melina should be careful, and pulled her to the surface. The maids rushed over to help her out of the water. The girl who had rescued her climbed out next. It was a Marmak girl named Cordelia. She was glad she was on time and asked how Lady Melina was feeling. She was ashamed of her clumsiness, so she thanked the girl dryly. The maids marveled at Cordelia's swimming. Every time they saw her swim, it took their breath away. The lady was like a fish in water. The girl smiled and emphasized that it wasn't that far from the truth. After all, she was half Marmak. She was born from the union of her human father with a mother from the Marmak tribe. She is the pledge of peace that was sent to the empire on the condition that the long war between the two races be ended. In other words, her very existence is a symbol of peace. One of the maids reflected on how strange it was to see a mixed-race person. She couldn't even think that Marmaks existed before she met Lady Cordelia. Melina cried out for everyone to remember manners when talking to Lady Cordelia, and the maid immediately rushed to apologize. Cordelia thought it was all right, for she knew there was no malice in her words. Melina did not like the fact that the girl was too careless. Pushing back the hem of her dress, she replied that after they had spent so much time together, all these formalities were inappropriate between them. Since she couldn't remember anything before she left the sea, they all became family to her. She liked this relaxed atmosphere very much. The girl, smiling contentedly, said that she knew Melina felt the same way. The maid embarrassedly agreed, and the young maids embraced Lady Cordelia joyfully. Cordelia thought it was strange that she had almost no memories of her life before she came here. She looked at her ring, just the one. A woman of the Marmak tribe speaks to little Cordelia. She is sorry that the girl will have to bear such a heavy burden at such a young age. She'd warned her, Cordelia should be wary of humans. It's in their nature to be greedy. If they ever tried to hurt her, she'd have to take the gem and… The girl only remembered someone giving her a ring, along with some sort of warning. But that had been so long ago, so the details were hazy. She wondered who that mermaid was. Night. Maids are tending to a lady. One of them, brushing her hair, says that Cordelia has her first day as an adult girl tomorrow. The second asks what kind of cake she would like. A special day like tomorrow certainly deserves a celebration. The maids were genuinely happy for the girl. Cornelia replied modestly that she would be 18 tomorrow, and there was no need for celebration. The girl said it was nonsense. There was no better day for celebration and fun than coming of age. It seemed to them that just yesterday she had been a tiny girl. She had grown up in the blink of an eye. The maid asked if the girl had decided on the gift she would ask His Majesty for. Cordelia answered that she hadn't thought about it yet. She had already received so much from him. His Majesty even built her this annex in the center of the imperial palace, all so that she could live free from human eyes, even though she was only a prisoner. She always thought it was a bit shameless of her to ask for anything else. Melina came in, saying it was getting rather late. The maids felt it was important to let Lady Cornelia rest well. Smiling sweetly, they said goodbye, wishing the lady a pleasant rest. When the girl first stepped ashore, everything seemed frightening and incomprehensible. Contrary to her fears, her attendants were very kind to her. Thanks to them, she quickly adapted to her new surroundings. Before she knew it, it had been the better part of 10 years. Cordelia would do her best to fulfill her role. She fell asleep soundly with those thoughts. A noise outside the window woke the girl. She went over to look, hoping for a breeze. When she touched the curtain, the window opened sharply. A boy with flowers stood in the window, who cheerfully said that since her birthday was coming soon, he had come to be the first to congratulate her. Emperor Tobias Julius von Babenberg of the Babenberg Empire. The girl was excited by the arrival of His Highness, and even in such an unusual way, he might have been noticed by the maids. The emperor reassured her, telling her that everyone knew he cared for her, as if she were his own daughter. If it was a mistake to wish his child a happy birthday, so be it. Cordelia was a little embarrassed. She couldn't express how happy she was to receive His Highness's care and affection. The emperor said, sadness overwhelming his heart as he clasped her in his arms. How lonely it must have been for her to live this annex. Still, there's nothing to be done about it. After all, it's for her own safety. His Majesty is indeed a kind man. However, due to excessive anxiety, he strictly limits access to the central annex so that no one can freely enter and exit. Neither the girl nor the maids were ever given permission to leave her territory. The girl said that His Majesty didn't need to worry. As long as there were those who harbored hatred for Marmak's heritage, she fully understood that His Majesty had no choice but to keep her out of harm's way. The emperor stroked the girl's head. He asked if there was anything she wanted for her birthday. She had enough of what he gave. The boy knew that Cordelia's response would be that, so he took the liberty of choosing a gift for her in advance himself. He hoped she would like it. The emperor went to the table and opened the box. In it was a beautifully crafted dagger decorated with many stones. He took it in his hands and said that this dagger was made especially for her. The sharpness of this blade is enough to easily pierce the skin of any beast. The girl was very happy to receive such an unusual gift. The boy was glad she liked it. The hand of the clock was approaching midnight. He said he wished she knew how long he had waited for this moment. Plunging the dagger into Cordelia's heart, he wished her a happy birthday. The boy cut out the girl's heart and lifted it up, rejoicing like a lunatic. Cornelia did not understand why His Highness had done this to her. She lay on the floor, bleeding, and remembered how, as a little girl, she had played with His Highness. What an infinitely kind smile he had. She was in a lot of pain. A mermaid floated in her memory, telling her that she shouldn't trust people. Greed is inherent in them by nature. If they ever try to harm her, she must take the gemstone on that ring and break it. She raised her hand and looked at the ring, praying that before she passed out, she should break it. And the stone cracked. Cornelia opens her eyes with a scream at her bedside, unharmed. She looks at her ring with the damaged stone. Melina flies into the room. She asks excitedly what happened. The girl jumps up and grabs her by the shoulders, asking if she is dead, since she was stabbed only a minute ago. Melina reassures the girl, saying that it looks like the lady had a nightmare. It must be horrible to experience such a thing on the morning of her birthday. The girl is perplexed. She incoherently says, "Nightmare, birthday," and Melina says that today is her 16th birthday. She couldn't believe it and asked if it was 768. The maid replied that the year 768 would be in 2 years. Cordelia snaps out of her seat and runs to the birthday cake. She remembers telling the maid that a chocolate cake would be a wonderful present for her 16th birthday. Was that possible? To which the girl replied to her that of course it was possible. She would be sure to write "Happy Birthday" in big letters on top. She flies into a room where she is greeted by maids with a cake and flowers. The girl looks at the cake. It's chocolate and says, "Happy Birthday" in big letters. They cheerfully congratulate her. The inner garden of the Imperial Palace. A man heals a boy's bruised knee. Prince of the Babenberg Empire, Noah Julius von Babenberg. After a short time, he informs her that the treatment is complete and she will not be sick again. The people standing nearby praise the healing magic of the imperial family. The man scolds the boy, saying that he has no idea how precious this power is, and how dare he inconvenience His Highness. The prince is asked not to be too hard on the boy. The prince smiled and said that there was no disease that did not require healing. Healing magic was a gift from heaven to be used for the greater good. He is glad he was able to heal this child. The people around him said he had no one to blame but himself as he tried to climb the wall to look inside the birdcage. The boy blushed and said that everyone says that a mermaid princess lives there. The man denied it, saying it was just a silly rumor. He realizes His Majesty, the Emperor, wishes to protect his captive from danger, but all he does is hide her. No one in the Imperial Palace has ever seen this girl. The boy turned to His Highness and inquired if he had ever seen a mermaid princess. He blanched. He couldn't say he had seen one. The prince sucked up his breath, remembering that he was going somewhere, and away he went. As the maids tended to Cordelia, she stared at the ring, still unable to believe it had brought her back in time. But she realized that was the best explanation. After all, she had broken the gem after being stabbed by the emperor. The maids noticed that the girl was pale. They were concerned about her well-being. She said she was fine. Then suddenly she remembered there was one more thing she had to check. The girl ran out into the garden. If she really had gone back in time 2 years, he would be there soon. When she arrived in the garden, she found the prince lying on the ground trying to climb the fence of the outhouse. Seeing him, she shrieked, calling out to his highness. The prince was pleased with the girl. He was embarrassed by the situation, but asked her to help him get through. Passed. The maids discussed the prince, his strange interest in soft toys and ribbons. They felt sorry for his soft-heartedness, and after all, he is next in line to the throne. The boy heard everything. He didn't understand why they were talking about him, like there was something wrong with him. He thought, what's wrong with liking a teddy bear, and he doesn't want to hurt anyone? Holding up a pink bundle of fabric, he excitedly told me that it was his favorite floral pattern. He asked me to make it into a new suit for him. The girls hesitated, convincing the prince that flowers were usually worn by ladies. He is the emperor's successor, and he should wear a strict satin red suit. The prince protested in embarrassment. The maid offered to make him a scarf out of the scania. Another maid, supporting her idea, offered to take his highness's measurements. Climbing through the same fence, little Cordelia caught his eye. He wished that at least one person in the world would understand him. He wished he had a friend who would accept him for who he was. The prince thanked the girl for helping him. If it wasn't for her, he would have been stuck here all day. Melina reprimands the prince, emphasizing that His Majesty would be disappointed if he discovered his secret forays into the palace. But as she sees it, that doesn't stop him. He said excitedly that he couldn't help but come here because today was a special day. It was Cordelia's birthday. He baked cookies and was willing to give them to the maids if they would promise to keep his foray here a secret. When they saw his wonderful cookies, they couldn't refuse. They were enchanted by his cooking skills. His baking is the best pay. Last time he brought the cake, it was unparalleled. Cordelia tensely watched what was happening. Her 16th birthday was exactly as she remembered it. The prince handed the girl a package. He wanted to give her a shawl for her birthday that he had embroidered himself. The prince blushed. Cordelia's smile brightened as she thanked him for such a valuable gift. She wanted to know how he and His Majesty were doing all this time. Unfortunately, she couldn't know about what was going on outside the palace. The prince looked away. He didn't know if he should talk about it. The prince asked him to excuse him for bringing bad news for them on such a day. He said that the war with the mermaids had started again. The girls were shocked. It was exactly as Cordelia remembered. Around the summer of 766, war broke out again. The second war started because of the reckless invasion of mermaids into the territory of humans. The prince said that the mermaids were the first to break the treaty, attacking a coastal village near the islands. Many fell from their onslaught, and they spared neither old men nor children. He didn't understand what innocent people had done. How dare they do such a thing? He hesitated and apologized to Cordelia. He didn't want to speak ill of her people. The girl said it was all right, for she did not remember much about her people. The only thing that matters, and that she feels affection for, are the people she spent her childhood here with. There was a shout of the guards saluting His Imperial Majesty. The girls were stunned. Cornelia began to quickly hide the prince. The emperor has arrived. The girls bowed, saluting His Majesty, saying may his fame be eternal in the empire. He thanked her and asked if they were all right. He heard that it was Cordelia's birthday, so he came to congratulate her. The emperor smiled servilely, saying that he hoped she would become a beautiful young lady. That would be enough to make his heart filled with happiness. All these words dulled the girl's sense of justice. The fact that war had come meant that the truce with the mermaid nation was over. It was surprising that he had decided to leave her in the palace. He asked her what she would like as a gift. She replied that she was satisfied with everything the emperor had given her. He stroked her head, and Cordelia shuddered at the memory. She ahed and inadvertently remembered one thing. Cordelia had asked His Majesty if he would allow it. She really wanted to go outside of this mansion. He laughed, reminding her that it was very dangerous for her outside. The girl panicked. She had been here for so long, she didn't think she could stay locked up for another year. He took her hands in his, telling her that she was still too young, but when she was old enough, then he would let her out. She remembered his words, how he had waited a long time for that moment. As she grew older, His Majesty plunged a knife into her. She cried as she fell to the floor, screaming how tired she was. She would rather die than go mad from not knowing the outside world. Cordelia realized there was only one way to convince him. If it worked, she could change her future. There was no choice now but to test it and take the risk. She looked up at him. His face was flaming with anger. The girl was horrified. He sighed and said pitifully that it seemed to have plagued her for a long time. He was so sorry he hadn't been more attentive to her feelings all this time. But, he asks to believe him, he can't allow that at the moment. Not now. He kneels down in front of the girl, saying that they are currently at war with the mermaid people. There are people outside these walls who wish the girl dead. He wouldn't be able to forgive himself if anything happened to her. Cornelia faltered and asked to be forgiven for her irritability, for she did not know what was going on outside the walls. He took her hand and thanked her for understanding. He promised that he would put an end to this war. Once it was over, he would show her everything. Until then, she should stay here and show some patience. The emperor was very nice to the lady. The maids came to the bushes, notifying His Highness that he could go out. His Majesty had just left the confines of the palace. He climbed out of the foliage with a sigh, looking sadly at Cordelia. The girls were excitedly discussing the news of the war. Another maid came up to them and cheered them up by telling them a story. The imperial family had been strengthened from generation to generation. Even since ancient times, the Babenberg Empire had conquered continents as if it was the will of the heavens themselves. It's quite a well-known story. Shortly after the first emperor took the throne, he fell ill with an incurable disease for a reason unknown to all. Many healers gave him all kinds of medicines, but none of them succeeded. So the emperor simply resigned himself to his fate and waited. But later he heard the voice of the heavenly Lord. To you and all your descendants, I give the power to lead you into a better future. And after that, a real miracle happened. The first emperor had somehow miraculously recovered, as if he had never been sick at all. Moreover, he had mastered the healing magic himself, even though people were not born with magic powers. Therefore, people considered him not a human being, but a true deity. And afterward, the power granted to the imperial family, like power, was passed down from generation to generation. The maid added that in addition, the current emperor is so skillful in controlling his power that he has surpassed all of his predecessors. He is overflowing with magic and uses it in such a way that his appearance is like that of a young boy, though he is actually in his 5th decade. She continued, saying that in any case, as long as the empire was blessed by the heavens, the war would end in the blink of an eye. They could breathe a sigh of peace and completely entrust their lives to the emperor. Cordelia stood perfectly still, thinking about what had happened. Though it hadn't been for long, the emperor had lost his temper for a moment. She wondered how long he had been pretending for. Suddenly, the most horrible thought swam through her mind. What if everyone around her knew everything from the beginning? The prince touched her shoulder, and she shuddered. He asked pitifully if she was pretending to be okay. No one thought she was so eager to leave this place. He promised to try to talk to his father and convince him to change his mind. Melina joined in, saying she would ask His Majesty to do so as well. She took Cordelia's hands in hers and apologized for not paying attention to her suffering, even though she was closest to her. The maids were tearfully pitying the girl. Cordelia looked at the prince and remembered his little one. They are sitting on the grass by the fence. The girl admires the boy's beautiful handkerchief. The boy asked, embarrassed, asking if it wasn't strange for him, since it wasn't appropriate for boys to wear something like that. The girl smiled brightly, seeing nothing strange about it. She said that it didn't matter who he was, because the important thing was that he liked it. The boy was happy to hear the words of understanding he had been hoping for. The prince jumped up, shook himself off, and said he was pleased to meet my lady. Holding out his hand, he asked if she would be his friend. Cordelia tried to keep her head held high and be strong, but in reality she was lonely and afraid of her new home. But when His Highness asked her to be his friend, she was overjoyed. Whenever he had the chance, he would visit her at the palace. As children should, they quickly became close. His Highness was a wonderful boy with a big heart. Perhaps that was why he often cried out of excitement for others, and smiled just as often. He is Cordelia's first precious friend, but not the only one. There are people she considered family. She didn't want to suspect them beforehand, but she had to. She wanted to talk them out of it, saying she didn't want to make them worry about it. She acted like a child and asked for something she shouldn't have. The prince said she shouldn't pretend everything was fine. They could convince her father before it was too late. The girl thanked, but assured him that everything was fine. His Majesty will let her come out when the war is over. Melina became agitated. Cordelia, taking her hands in hers, said she would just show some patience. Until then, she'll just enjoy her time here with everyone. She was sure that the right day would come soon. She thanked them for their concern and smiled happily. Cordelia thought, if she had already decided not to doubt any of them, she must believe them. There is some secret about her coming of age that His Majesty is hiding. She must know the truth, but it's easier said than done. She is at a disadvantage. For starters, she can't set foot outside the palace. In her current situation, it's hard to accomplish all the things she'd like to. She sighed and recalled the order of past events in her memory. She shook her head angrily, cursing herself that even though she'd gone back in time, she couldn't remember anything useful. Noah was her only source of news. The maids were murmuring behind Cordelia's back, saying the mistress was a little strange today. Melina wondered why they weren't doing anything. They pointed at Cordelia. The girl thought back to the day of her adulthood, looking for a clue there. But she had lost so much blood then, her head was like a fog. Because of that, she couldn't remember any useful information. She couldn't just sit there and waste her precious time. Melina came up to her and awkwardly asked if anything was bothering her. The girl looked away, pretending as if nothing was important. Melina set the tea dishes in front of her, and Cordelia, pulling on a smile, thanked her for the tea. Melina asked her pardon for asking, but wasn't it the war that Mistress was worried about? Cornelia wondered if it might look that way from the outside, and that was even better. If she tells anyone that the Emperor is trying to kill her, she will be charged with insulting the imperial personage. It would be hard to explain that she went back in time. She decided to pretend she was worried about the war. It would look natural. The girl was embarrassed, asking if it was so obvious. She knows she won't change the outcome of this war, but she still worries. She just can't help but worry about it. But worst of all, she can't find out what's really going on. Melina suggested contacting her uncle. He serves in the Imperial Navy and might be able to give a general idea of what's going on. Cordelia replied that if she could do that for her, that would be fine. Taking the cup in her hand, Melina was horrified to see that its stone had cracked. The girl became agitated, assuming it had broken when she fell. The maid was sorry, for it was the only thing Cordelia had left of the sea. But she claimed it was all right. Cordelia opened the sugar bowl, but it was almost empty. She asked for the sugar bowl to be refilled, and the maid immediately rushed to fetch it. The father and little Melina are standing in a meadow. Holding a sword, he says that it is every woman's duty to bear a son for the continuation of the race. Doesn't she think this opinion is outdated? She too can lead their clan and fulfill her dreams. If she really wants to become a knight, he will do everything in his power to support her. He hands her the sword and strokes her head. He wanted her to be free and live the life she wanted for herself. It was raining. People had gathered in front of the church to honor the memory of the dead Count of Hanover. Standing at his grave, they talked about him. They said how sorry they were for him, but maybe it was better than him becoming a member of the House of Representatives. He was talking nonsense about leaving the title to his daughter, letting the girl be the head of the family. The other aristocrats would finally be free of fear and could breathe easy now that there would be a man at the head of the family. Mr. Hanover's children have heard it all. His brother was hiding behind his sister, shaking with fear. She turned to him and assured him that there was nothing to worry about, that he would succeed. Bill denied it, because he wasn't strong and he wasn't as smart as she was. Melina put her hands on his shoulders and said in all seriousness that he was not allowed to say such things. Now he would be the head of the house. He had to be strong and brave. The girl thought she needed to hang in there. While it was true that their father wanted her to fulfill her dreams, there were things she needed to do as the eldest daughter of the Hanover family. Sitting on the grass in the garden, a distressed Melina told Noah how things were going for her. The elders of the family wanted to force the girl to become a court maid. He was very furious about it. She would probably find a good match if she was attached to the palace. She suspected that the elders wanted to marry her off so that the clan's power would grow stronger. The prince asked if she would come to fencing lessons again. The girl said that it was only because of her father that she could learn to wield a sword, but when he left, she clutched her sword and hesitated. The elders think it's unseemly for a woman to hold a sword. Noah was very upset. Even their instructors said she was the best. And the boy added, if she became a maid, they wouldn't be able to play much. Melina looked up at him and smiled, asking if he knew what that building in the center of the imperial court was. Noah replied uncertainly that it seemed that a captive mermaid lived there. And the girl said that it was true. Now he knew where she would work. The boy hesitated, then exclaimed excitedly that he could visit her, and he would do anything to get there. Melina laughed. She said confidently that he would be caught and put outside. The maids are taking the groceries. Melina checked the checklist. As she listed the items, she yawned a long yawn. The maid next to her asked if she was all right. Melina covered her mouth sharply and blushed, ashamed of her manners. She said she hadn't slept well and needed to get some sleep. Cordelia was rushing toward them. She had forgotten that they had received the supplies today and offered to help organize everything. Schwitka reassured the girl, saying that the two of them would be fine. Cordelia blanched. She was alone with nothing to do. Missing the maid's words, she crouched down by the bags, eyeing them, asking if it all needed to go down to the basement. Melina panicked. They couldn't let her do the backbreaking work. The girl was already touching the bag, and Melina said that she never gave up and insisted, even though they could do it themselves. Cordelia replied that she was ashamed that she was the only one doing nothing while everyone else was working hard. It's not fair. After all, this is her home. She lives in it. As long as she's part of the family, she wants to help. Seeing the lady's bright smile, little Cordelia floated in Melina's mind. She joyfully extends her hand and offers to befriend her. She called out to Mrs. Cordelia, carrying a sack down to the basement, saying that she hadn't changed since they'd first met. Not at all. Her words made the girl blush. She asked Cordelia to promise that this was the only bag she would carry. A bead fell at Melina's feet. Schwitka saw something shining and reached for it, but Melina bent down and grabbed the bead before Schwitka did, scaring her very much. She began to apologize to her. Cordelia found her reaction very unusual. Night. The maids escorted the mistress to her chambers, and after exchanging goodbye wishes for a good night's sleep, they left. The girl did not feel very well. Everything was sore because of the weight she had been carrying. Her feet barely carried her to the bed. But she noticed a bright glow. Turning around, Cornelia saw the full moon. It seemed unusually beautiful to her, and the girl immediately clung to the window. It was light outside, so she noticed His Highness in the cage. She was worried, so she went downstairs quietly to see if anything was wrong. Stepping out into the courtyard, Cornelia called out for His Highness, but found that no one was there. Past. Little Melina searches for Cornelia in the yard. The girl was playing with Noah. She started to introduce her new friend to her. Melina ran up to them and knocked the boy on the head. She scolded him, for she had asked him not to get caught. Noah insinuated that she was being rude and reminded her that he was still a prince. Cordelia was completely unaware of what was going on. A moment later, Melina apologizes for the inconvenience. She shouldn't have reacted like that. The girl was glad that they were both taking fencing lessons. She asked Melina with interest why she had not told her that she could handle a sword. She would have liked to see it. Melina blushed, saying there was nothing impressive about it. Noah spoke excitedly about Melina's amazing skills. Their teacher always said she could do the 10 things he just showed her the first time. She's magical with a sword. Her blade moves so fast you can't even see it. Melina laughed embarrassedly. She said that His Highness is bad at everything but brute strength. He's always raring to go before he starts sparring. Noah blushed at her story. Cordelia laughed, saying that they must be very close. His Highness had come all this way to see Melina. The girl took her hands and offered her friendship. All 3 of them could be friends. Melina recoiled, thankful for the offer. She emphasized that it wouldn't be wise. The boys were very upset by her response. She tried to explain that it's not because she's uncomfortable. She knows they don't remember their past, but the fact that they live in the palace as a sign of reconciliation means they have high status. Melina thought she was only a maid assigned to a lady. To be their friend was an honor not befitting her status. Cordelia lay in bed, thinking how much time had passed since then. The maids entered the room, notifying her that it was time to get up. The girl could hardly open her eyes. The maid, noticing her tired look, asked how she had slept. The girl had been admiring the moon last night. She had been gazing at it till late in the night. She told her that she had seen His Highness last night, and asked if he'd come here. Melina was quite nervous. She laughed and said that there were only women in this palace. He wouldn't have come here in the middle of the night. The lady must have mistaken the shadow from the tree for His Highness, Cordelia was surprised, but suggested that it was possible. The day passed as usual. The girls ate, walked, socialized. Night came. Cordelia was sure she couldn't mistake the shadow from the tree for His Highness. She crept into the courtyard. Cordelia thought it was so bright, you could probably see the difference between a shadow and a person. On top of that, there was something odd about the way Melina spoke, as if she were trying to hide something. Sitting around the corner, she saw His Highness climbing under the fence. Melina rushed over to help him up. Cordelia was shocked and glad she had come to see it. Melina grumbled at Noah for probably being seen last night. She had, after all, asked him not to wait in plain sight so it wouldn't happen. The girl had warned him that he needed to be careful, for Cordelia was very savvy. He agreed with her words. Cordelia didn't understand what they were hiding from her. Her mind jumbled. They were on their way to the greenhouse at this late hour. Cornelia rushed after them. She thought it might not have been just the last 2 years. Maybe they'd been fooling her all along. What if they were in league with the Emperor? She wanted to believe they weren't. If they really had betrayed her, what was she supposed to do now? She was confused. Noah and Melina sat down at the table. Cordelia watched them through the glass panes of the greenhouse, but she had a poor view of what was going on. The guy was showing and explaining something to Melina, but she didn't understand, and asked him to explain it more clearly. If he was going to teach her, he should teach her something. Her patience was running out. Their conversation turned into a quarrel. Cornelia sat on the floor, completely unaware of what was happening. Meanwhile, a frog was sneaking up on her. It touched her arm, and the girl screamed. Noah and Melina rushed to her aid. They were surprised by her presence. The girl awkwardly replied that she was out for a walk. Making an innocent face, she asked what they were doing here. They looked at each other awkwardly. They led her into the greenhouse and showed her the pearl bracelet. Melina was very embarrassed. The prince explained that she did most of it herself. He only told her what to do. Cordelia marveled at their progress, and what a wonderful teacher he was. She asked why they were keeping it a secret, what they were going to do with it. Melina looked away, saying that the lady's birthday had already passed, but it was supposed to be a surprise. Cordelia felt ashamed that she had thought so badly of them. The maid apologized. She wanted it to be a surprise, but the lady revealed them before they could finish everything. She'd given Noah a lot of trouble, though, because she couldn't make the bracelet pretty enough. Cordelia screamed that it was all her fault. Noah tried to dispel such a tense atmosphere by saying that it didn't matter now. Melina is sometimes too hard on herself. She shouldn't belittle herself for her efforts. Noah was right. Cordelia didn't care so much how she did it. She was very grateful. After all, Melina had prepared a gift especially for her. What could be more important? Melina remembered their childhood. Cordelia demanded that Melina let her be their friend. The girl was watering the flowers, picking up the watering can. She asked how often she had asked her that. Cordelia thought for a long time and decided she didn't want to back down. Melina made an attempt to say something, but immediately the lady crossed her arms over her chest and muttered that they couldn't be friends because she was an important person. If the reason is only because she is important. Melina looked away, asking what the other servants would think if they were too close. The girl replied that what was important was what she herself desired. Melina suddenly remembered asking her father what would happen if she mastered the art of swordsmanship like Noah. As far as she remembered, it was forbidden. People don't like to see a lady swinging a sword. Her father faltered, stroking the little girl's head. He said, "It doesn't bother them. What she wants is more important than the opinion of others." Cordelia brought her back to reality with her declaration of love. She said she loved her kindness and sincerity, and she made another attempt to offer friendship. Melina blushed and turned away. Hiding her embarrassment, she agreed, on the condition that no one would know about it. The memory made her feel happy. She thanked Lady Cordelia. The girl resented asking to use an informal style of communication when no one else was around. Melina remembered the letter she had planned to give to the lady tomorrow, but since the circumstances were such, she handed it in now. Cordelia didn't understand what the letter was. The maid explained that her uncle had sent a reply to her letter. He spoke briefly about what was happening in the war. The lady hoped she would learn something useful. The letter said that Uncle was glad to hear Melina's unexpected letter, and he hoped she was okay. There's no other way to describe this place than as the ultimate hell. By order, he is forbidden to divulge any information, but he said one thing: the situation is much worse than before the truce. Marmaks are completely different from humans and cause a lot of problems. In addition to utilizing their magical powers, they are hard to kill or wound, and their stamina is amazing. Their only weaknesses are iron and fire, so the soldiers try to use only that. But due to their incredible regeneration, it's hard for them to go on the offensive. Regardless, the uncle vowed to do his best for the good of the empire and his niece's future. He asked for prayers for their victory. Noah interrupted the silence by saying that things were worse than they'd anticipated. Melina wondered if the Marmaks couldn't stand fire and iron, and Cordelia couldn't either. The girl had touched the iron before, but it hadn't done her any harm. Noah assumed that the other effect was due to the fact that Cornelia was of mixed blood. After all, she was half human. Melina added that maybe that was why she couldn't use her magic. Then that would mean that Cordelia looked more like humans. Cordelia wondered if she looked like Marmak in the water. The fact that she was breathing calmly underwater proved that she was definitely not human. It was the part of the letter that bothered her. She picked it up and poked at it. Their stamina is amazing. What could that mean? Noah said he once overheard his father talking to the commander. According to the commander, a mermaid's body is much stronger than a human's. Usually people die with serious head or heart injuries, but apparently it doesn't work on mermaids. Melina wondered if he meant to say that they couldn't be killed. Noah replied that wasn't exactly true, but the commander said they could still move for a while, even after being stabbed through the heart. If that was true, it was no wonder why they wouldn't give up. Noah thought that was what Melina's uncle had meant when he'd said the Marmaks were giving them a lot of trouble. Cordelia felt sick. She was so shocked by this information that her heart ached as if it had been ripped out again. Before her eyes was the Emperor holding her heart in his hands. How happy he was to get it, and the girl fell to the floor gasping. She realized that his goal was not to kill her, but to get her heart. The girl clutched her nightgown to her chest and asked Melina if she could ask her for a favor. She wanted to request an audience with His Majesty, so she asked Melina to send the request. She asked what the lady wished to discuss with him. Cordelia replied with a determined look that there was something she would rather discuss with him alone. 4 hours later, Melina sees Noah off, standing at the fence. She asks him to help finish the bracelet. The guy agrees, but he wonders why the bracelet, since Cordelia's ring is broken. The girl looked at him with a certain sense of abomination. She shouted angrily that she could not believe her ears. Could he really be laughing at her? She jabbed her finger at him, saying he was the one who should give Cordelia the ring, not her. Melina asked how long he was going to cherish this one-sided love, and when he was going to tell Cordelia how he felt. The prince blushed and covered his face with his hand. He was having a hard time coming up with an appropriate response. Melina grabbed the bars and started screaming that he had been putting this off for the past few years. Did he realize how hard it was to watch? He was driving her crazy. The prince entered the store. The proprietor greeted him flatteringly. They sat down in armchairs over a cup of tea. His Highness thanked him for the warm welcome, but he felt bad that they had to close because of him. He remembered Melina yelling at him about being friends with Cordelia for years. Did it not occur to him to make the first move, or was he going to stand by and watch someone else take her away? He agreed, but he couldn't help feeling as if Melina had forced him to come here. Noah remembered playing with Cordelia as a child and saying that she wanted to be friends with him until she died. Those memories excited him. He had a purpose. He didn't want to be Cordelia's friend forever. He thought that this time he would actually have the courage to confess his feelings to her. The owner of the jewelry store emphasized that their enterprise is the largest on the continent. They have quite a large selection of jewelry. He was confident that they would be able to find what he was looking for. The prince hesitated. He said he was looking for a gemstone that would be to the young lady's taste. It had to be the right size for the ring, something unique and rare if possible. It would be lovely if it were a blue shade that reminded me of the sea. The Lord ordered the sample that came this morning. He didn't realize His Highness was looking for such a gem. Given that he was known for his modesty, the shopkeeper couldn't imagine that he would be interested in jewelry. The prince agreed. It was his first time in such a place. He was embarrassed to say that he felt uncomfortable here. The man assured him that he would get used to it. After all, he would follow in the footsteps of His Majesty the Emperor and be the most important person in the empire. The jewel he was about to display was so rare that the cream of high society could only dream of seeing it. His Majesty had come to the right place. The prince got a little nervous. The shopkeeper reassured the prince he guaranteed complete privacy for their customers. The shopkeeper returned, carrying a beautiful box. The gentleman said it is the finest specimen they currently have available. Its quality is amazing. The gem His Highness was looking for. The man opened the box, and the prince was numb with horror. Inside the box was a mermaid's eye, a beautiful shiny bead the color of the sea. The prince asked again if it was really a mermaid's eye. The shopkeeper said that it was probably the first time the prince was seeing it, so it was no wonder His Highness was struck by its beauty. It had been delivered this morning, so it was undoubtedly the freshest. Noah couldn't believe it. He thought it was all a joke. The shopkeeper remarked that His Highness was hard to convince. He added that the optic nerve had been removed with extreme precision. It's absolutely perfect. The prince leaned over sharply, covering his face with his hands. He felt nauseous. He wondered if the man was trying to play a joke on him, but it didn't seem like a joke. Finding the strength to calm down, he said as far as he was concerned, the mermaid's eye was a treasure. He couldn't believe he had managed to see it live. The man confirmed, saying that the fact that it is hard to get hold of is what makes it so valuable. This is due to the fact that mermaids have a ferocious nature and rarely leave the water. Only the imperial family has the right to supply mermaid eyes. Noah was very surprised. When he found out that the prince knew nothing about it, his master gladly told him everything. Their venture is also gaining eyeballs through the imperial family. This is a great opportunity for the prince to learn about the industry he will undoubtedly inherit. The high priest has condemned such a thing. Because of his interference, they use illegal means of supply. Thanks to the war, the corpses of mermaids are brought ashore. That's why there are no supply problems lately. What a blessing that evil creatures are actually a gold mine for humans. It's a business. This war is a real grace. Sunny morning. Cordelia stood by the foodstuffs, indignant that they had delivered too much again. She picked up the sack, but it was too heavy and she almost fell. Noah caught her, telling her she needed to be more careful. Cordelia greeted him cheerfully by name, then corrected herself to a more formal style of communication. She inquired why he had come to the annex. The prince didn't have a specific reason. He just wanted to see her. Cordelia noticed his upset look, though he tried to smile. She reached out to him and stroked his face, asking if something had happened. He was surprised at first, blushing, but afterward nestled into her hand. Cordelia noticed what she'd done and abruptly took his hand away. Her heart was pounding frantically. She suggested that he tell her everything. They sat down on the railing of the bridge. He decided to keep silent about the recent news until he was sure it was true. It was hard for him to tell Cordelia, since it had to do with the mermaids. Noah thought it was too cruel to be true. The shopkeeper must be using strange rumors to deceive customers. He didn't believe his father was hiding anything from him. The prince asked the girl how she would feel if she knew something she shouldn't know, something it was better not to know at all. She hesitated. She would want to know the truth. Cordelia said there was something she hadn't told anyone. She had been doubting herself a lot lately. She came here as a child. She had no memories of the past. For a prisoner, she has a privileged enough life. But the fact is, she can't afford to go outside the palace. She has no opportunity to learn anything new. She is served day and night, but is she worthy of this care? Cordelia is racked with guilt, so she tries to be helpful. She's not good enough at needlework like Noah, and she doesn't have sword skills like Melina. She felt like an old flower vase that was useless because it was empty. She doesn't know what the future holds. If the war ends, her only purpose as a prisoner will be gone. Noah objected. He thought she was much more than a prisoner. He blushed, adding that she had no idea how much. Cordelia smiled at him. She touched his arm, telling him that she had hoped to comfort him, but ended up being comforted herself. She was very grateful to him. The girl looked up at the sky and said that after all, she was the one who should decide her own fate. That's why, if she finds out something bad, she'd rather face it head-on, no matter how much it hurts her. Noah looked at her admiringly, saying that's what she would do. He didn't think he was the same. The thought flashed through his mind that this was why he loved Cordelia. Noah and his father are having tea in the garden. Father asks how long he's going to put it off. It's time to make a decision. Noah turns 18 this year. He is no longer a child. The man says he's not asking him to take part in the war. All he wants is for Noah to gain a better understanding of battle tactics. Noah broke out in a cold sweat. He tried to explain that giving orders was not his forte. If he went to headquarters, he would only be in the way. His father interrupted him, saying that was why he advised him to just observe to gain experience. Noah is only capable of killing an ant. The emperor didn't expect him to participate. Noah said he understood him, but like his father said, he's not that experienced. If he's on the front lines just because he's a prince, he's sure he'll do more harm than good. Not to mention it's a battlefield. It's not enough to simply map out a plan of defense or offense. He can't help but think it would be foolish of him to use the best knights for his personal protection. The emperor answered him with a rebuke that use power was a concept that had nothing to do with Noah. His father offers him a great opportunity to gain experience in combat, but his son preferred to stay here like a coward. He asked if he dared call himself a prince after that. Noah asked what his father thought about the war. For more than 10 years, this senseless war has been going on with no end in sight. Isn't it disgusting? No one benefits from constantly destroying each other. He didn't understand why it was taking so long. Noah plucked up his courage and blurted out if there was something his father was keeping from him. Father thought for a moment and replied that only a bloodthirsty monster would enjoy war. But as long as the mermaids continued to attack their lands and plunder their people, it was his duty as emperor to protect his subjects. Even if his only goal is to care for the innocent, he can't give up on war. Noah was sure his father was incapable of planning something so terrible. The maid brought the cake that His Highness had requested. The emperor folded his arms across his chest and asked what it was. Noah had made this cake for their tea party. The prince was talking about the cake when suddenly his father slammed his fist on the table, saying angrily that he was tired of telling him that a man shouldn't be in the kitchen. He waved his hand and ordered the maid to take it away. Tobias thought that everyone was getting on his nerves today. Cordelia had been nice and obedient all the time. Why so suddenly she was asking to see him? It would be better for her not to bother him too much. Cordelia was in her room contemplating her magical abilities. Standing by the table, pointing her palm at the book lying on it, she loudly ordered the book to rise into the air and flutter like a butterfly. At that moment, Melina walked in. Seeing what was happening, she froze and then backed away, closing the door behind her. Cordelia begged her to stay, saying it wasn't what she thought it was. Cordelia explained everything to her. Melina assumed it was too soon to worry that she didn't have magic power, but the girl thought she could figure out how it worked. She supposed that maybe if she used a bunch of spells, something similar to the way she changed underwater would happen. So she shrieked, ordering the rain to come and the fire to light. She wondered if that was roughly how it was supposed to work. Melina assumed that magic worked a little differently. For example, Noah doesn't cast spells when he uses his power. Cordelia agreed and decided to ask for help when they met. Melina doubted it would help and suggested asking His Majesty, as he would be arriving at the castle soon. She agreed. Cordelia seemed ready to meet him, but apparently the fear deep inside was going nowhere. Melina said that they were lucky that the emperor had some free time in his schedule. Otherwise, it would have been difficult to get an audience in the near future. Suddenly there was shouting. Someone had thrown too much wood on the fire. The workers were arguing. Melina needed to check what was going on in the kitchen. She said goodbye and asked Cordelia to get ready for the meeting. The girl was worried. She clenched her fists and convinced herself to stay calm. Today she would talk about everything with the emperor. The guards gave notice of the emperor's arrival. He ordered them to wait outside. Cordelia met him at the house, greeting him cordially and telling him how long she had waited for their meeting. He was quite surprised when he heard of her request for an audience. After all, it was the first time she had asked for it. Therefore, the emperor was willing to listen to her. The girl thought she had no problem organizing this meeting, but now that she was face to face with him, she felt like her heart was about to jump out. The emperor may look like a child, but beneath that innocent exterior lurks a dangerous snake. How easy it was for him to deceive her for the past 10 years. She couldn't match his years of experience. Even standing in front of him, she couldn't understand what he was hiding behind his smile. That was why he was to be feared. Cordelia was finally able to say that she had a lot of time to think, but she couldn't temper her curiosity, so she asked to see His Majesty. The emperor inquired curiously. Cordelia thought he was horrified. She was equal parts angry and terrified. It must have been amusing to him to watch her swallow the lies like the ultimate fool. The girl said no matter how much she thought about it, how she thought she was old enough to step outside the palace. The emperor reminded of the danger and the people's hatred of mermaids because of the war. Cordelia interrupted His Highness, thanking him for his concern. However, she thought it seemed a bit odd. Since the truce had been broken, she had no reason to stay any longer. Besides, if she doesn't venture into the water, no one can guess that she's Marmak. The people in the palace treat her like she's part of their family, even though they know who she is. She has little faith that they only hate her because she is different from them. The emperor sighed, saying that she was deluded. How could she believe that they were sincere towards her? Even before they were assigned as her servants, these children were trained. It was only because of their training that she could live in comfort, despite being a prisoner. Cordelia hesitated, for no one had mentioned anything like that. The emperor had explained, all because he had given such an order. It was no good if she found out about it. Her servants are forbidden to express any hostility or hatred towards her. The emperor spoke, and began to walk slowly towards Cordelia. Therefore, he hoped she didn't hate them either. Unfortunately, she would never know. Perhaps there are those among them who despise her madly. The emperor was curious as to what she was going to do when she left this place. She had everything she could ever want here. He suggested imagining her going outside. He asked how she would live if she had a concrete plan. He said, did she really think that if she left the palace, all her problems would be solved? It was nothing but empty dreams. Does she know how to use money, read cards? He asked if she knows how to do that. What does she hope to accomplish if she doesn't have even basic knowledge? Cordelia backed away from him and screamed that His Majesty's words were too cruel. He shouted back, ordering, telling her what she was really good at. He asked her, for someone who was capable of nothing but being a prisoner, if she thought she was being overly brazen. Cordelia was horrified at his words. His Majesty continued, walking towards Cordelia again. Without his care and support, she wouldn't last a day. Why she didn't want to accept the fact that everything was being done for her own good. Why is she acting so stupid when she knows she's incapable of taking care of herself? The emperor stepped too close, and Cordelia stepped back, knocking the vase stand over and shattering it. She fell right in front of the emperor and looked at him in horror. He was saying how ungrateful of her. She was blessed, but unable to understand even that. His usual sweet smiling expression changed to an angry grin. Cordelia had nothing to contradict him. He was right. She was completely useless. Cordelia accidentally touched one of the vase shards. She took it in her hand, saying she didn't think His Majesty had a clue about anything. She might not know anything about the outside world, but there was one thing she knew for sure. And Cordelia put the shard to her chest. The emperor, with a look of horror on his face, asked again what she had just said. Cordelia replied, "Her heart is what His Majesty craves." She grinned, saying what luck it was that the only thing she knew was the most important truth of all. Tobias didn't understand how that was possible. How had she known about it? She had given no indication before that she knew, and there was no one to tell her. He suggested that perhaps she had known about it from the beginning. Cordelia asked His Majesty if they could skip the small talk and get straight to the point. If he's willing to negotiate, she has something to offer him. She'll risk what he wants most. Cordelia pressed the shard near her heart, and blood began to trickle down her arms. She said one sudden movement, and she would kill herself. The emperor thought she wasn't bluffing. He'd always thought she was just a puppy, but she turned out to be a real lioness. He said he didn't know where she heard these strange rumors, but there seemed to be a misunderstanding. He asked her to put the shard down for the time being. He apologized for the rudeness she'd heard a moment ago. The thought flashed through his mind that she was still a 16-year-old girl. It would be easy to persuade her. Cordelia answered him, not removing the shard from his chest, that she would only forgive His Majesty when he let her out of here. He clenched his fists, claiming she had nowhere to go. She agreed. Gritting his teeth, he suggested she visit the local attractions and issued a special permit. Cordelia laughed, thinking His Majesty must be joking. She asked if he would really let her go that far to visit the rides. He shouted out what she wished for then, Cordelia's memory. One evening, she is sitting in a room with the maids. She is drinking tea. The girls are engaged in embroidery. Schwitka says that since there is a war, people will meet hard times again. Their lives would be at stake. Cordelia asked how, since soldiers were going to war. Schwitka agreed and added that taxes would be doubled, and all for the sake of military needs. Another maid emphasized that this is their second war. They are short of both resources and men. All young men and even women will be drafted into the war. And Cordelia gave a determined response to the emperor. She demanded that she be sent to the front lines. She would definitely be of use there. The emperor had no words. He thought it was some kind of absurdity. The girl said that she knew they accepted both women and men, for they did not have enough people. The emperor protested. He didn't understand why, of all places, it was the front line. Cordelia emphasized, It was the place where they would need someone as useless as her. Tobias was angry. He grabbed his head and wondered what the hell this was all about. What if something happened to Cordelia, or if she contacted the mermaids and went back to the sea? She promised to come back in 2 years. He hummed and asked why she should come back if she was trying so hard to leave this place. Cordelia replied that there was a growing-up ceremony waiting for her since she would be 18. If she doesn't perform the ceremony, she won't be recognized as an adult, so she must return. The man pondered over what she said. If she herself wants to go back before she turns 80, then she's still not up to speed on the most important part. There is no way to miss this opportunity. He smiled, saying he was relieved when she said she'd be back. In that case, he would think about her offer. Cordelia smiled happily. She was sure his goal was to get her heart out in 2 years. But even in his wildest dreams, he never imagined she'd survive. She said with relief and some sense of gratitude that His Majesty finally understood how she felt and released the shard from her hand. She had expected the Emperor to let his guard down. She was determined to beat whatever death he could prepare for her, no matter what. After the meeting, Cordelia bumped into Melina as she tried to quietly make her way back to her room. Melina examined Cordelia's wounds and didn't understand how this could have happened. The girl replied that she had accidentally bumped into a flower vase. Melina couldn't believe that such accidents could damage her arm so seriously. The maid noticed the wound in her chest. Melina was saddened to see Cordelia say that she only wanted to ask His Majesty something. She wondered if she really wouldn't tell her what had happened. She begged her to tell, for she was worried about Cordelia. But the girl turned away and mumbled that nothing had happened. She understood why Melina was shocked. She would be shocked too if she saw her in this state. Cordelia was confused. She didn't know what to do. She couldn't tell the truth. She wouldn't believe her if she made any more pathetic excuses. She should hurry up and put this whole thing behind her. Melina said Cordelia had gotten weird. She only tells her one lie. Cordelia's excuses make her even more worried that she might be in trouble. She is just out of her mind with worry. Cordelia panicked, her voice trembling. She said she didn't mean to hide anything on purpose. She reached her hand toward Melina, but she shoved it away sharply. Melina demanded to know what had really happened, unless Cordelia was trying to hide something. She said Cordelia had said they were friends. She'd said they were almost like family. So why was she treating Melina like she was a stranger to her? She wondered if Cordelia realized how sad this was making her. Cordelia was surprised. She was sorry, and she told him that she had broken the vase herself and used the shards for the purpose of threatening His Majesty that she would kill herself. Melina panicked. The girl replied that she wanted to leave this house, but he kept keeping her locked up. So she pretended that she would sacrifice her life. Holding Cordelia by the shoulders, the maid asked her to promise not to do such things again. The girl agreed. Melina awkwardly asked what the Emperor's response was. Cordelia smiled happily and replied that everything had gone well. She would be out on the battlefield soon. The maids were cleaning the library. They had to hurry to finish cleaning the library in time for today. Schwitka wondered how the 3 of them had managed it all over the years. The other maid said it would be over soon, because Cordelia would be leaving the annex soon. It seemed strange to Schwitke. It had all happened so fast. Cordelia had been locked in here all this time. It was rather odd that she was suddenly being released. The other girl put her hand on Schwitke's shoulder and said cheerfully that who cared, because thanks to her, they would finally be able to leave this place. Even though the last 8 years have been tough, they are well compensated. The day after tomorrow, they will finally be free. With her hard-earned money, she will pay off her debts, buy land, and build her own house. She'll finally have a life. One of the maids put her hand on Schwitka's shoulder and asked her to keep her dreams to herself. She understood everything, but they were right in the imperial palace right now. You have to keep your mouth shut if you want to survive in this place. She asked Schwitka if she remembered what had happened when they first came here. Her eyes filled with horror. She remembered the woman hitting her feet with a pointer, leaving bloody marks. The girl added that if they didn't watch their words, they wouldn't hesitate to cut off their tongues. It's better to focus on what they are doing now rather than the future. She offered to go out and see how things had changed in all these last 8 years. They would buy lots of beautiful clothes and eat the best and tastiest food. Schwitka agreed, but she felt as if she would miss this place. She remembered little Cordelia and their acquaintance. Noah sat on the porch eating cookies and sulking at Cordelia, Melina scolding him, saying his sour face was inappropriate here. He asked how she could go to an audience and not tell him. He's actually surprised that his father would allow such a thing. Noah asked what Cordelia had really done to convince him. She faltered, glancing nervously at Melina, who was non-verbally trying to hint to Cordelia not to say anything to Noah. He was sure to faint from shock. Cordelia took a seat next to Noah and told him that you could tell she had affected him with a girl's tears. He didn't believe his father could be moved by tears. Noah asked why Cordelia would go to the battlefield. It's dangerous out there. She understood that, but she would be far from the front lines. She's signed up to run errands at the field hospital. Besides, Cordelia's clearly cheerful about it. Melina's going with her. Noah was dumbfounded by this news. He asked Melina if she was going to return to the aristocracy. But the girl answered in the negative. She couldn't leave Cordelia. She would die of worry for her. That meant Noah would be alone here. He was sad. He asked Cordelia if she would miss the place afterward. She hesitated and replied that all the maids would be gone, so the place would be empty. Of course she would miss them. But the last time she met His Majesty, he said they had been trained before they were assigned to her. He said that even if they hated me for being half mermaid, they were forbidden to show their dislike. She feared that perhaps they were among those who hated her. Melina smiled at Cordelia, saying that's why she was acting so strange with the other attendants. She said to listen to her carefully. To become a chaperone, indeed, they had to undergo such a strange training, and they had to be locked in the annex with her. But for the most part, no one forces them to be here. It's not easy, but in return, they get enough money to last a lifetime. They also get a guaranteed allowance for their old age. Everyone came here to get something. But should that mean they would risk taking a job, being forced to, living with someone they hate so much, when one misstep would cost a life? Melina turned and glared, saying that she too had gotten the same training, and there was nothing wrong there. Melina tried to cheer Cordelia up. She couldn't speak for everyone, but she really liked her. And that was the truth. She smiled sincerely at her. Noah embarrassedly shouted that he liked Cordelia too. The girl laughed, thanking them and saying how much she loved them. The Emperor reflected on Cordelia's words that she had promised to return here herself after she had put her life on the line to get out of here. What a foolish lie. However, he couldn't have her causing more trouble, so he had to pretend to believe her. Tobias would have tied her hands and feet if he could, but he risked damaging her precious body. He'd try to get her back when he had the chance, but in the meantime, he'd ordered Melina to keep an eye on her, to make sure she didn't do anything stupid. A long time ago, Noah asked Cordelia a question. They were playing sitting on the grass in the outhouse yard, and he asked if she was on the mermaid's side. The girl didn't understand his question. He said he knew she was half human, but she also lived in the sea with other mermaids. It just seemed to him that she loved them so much more. Cordelia had been too young then to fully understand what Noah wanted to say. He asked her when the war was over if she would go back to sea. He looked very upset. When Cordelia heard the trembling in Noah's voice, she felt his fear pierce her heart. She answered him that she wouldn't leave because she couldn't leave him here. Without thinking, she'd promised Noah something she wasn't sure of. But how else was she supposed to answer him? She'd been born out of the bond between the two races. She couldn't tell him who she really was, for even she didn't know the answer to that question. If she had memories before she set foot on land. Little Cordelia is brought to the annex area, and she screams and cries, saying she is not human, she is a mermaid, and she wishes to go home. Cordelia asked herself if the people she loved, just as she loved Noah and Melina, were here, waiting for her in the azure sea. Would she beg to be taken back to the sea? She was tormented by the unknown. Who was she? Why didn't she remember anything? Who would she love if she lived alone? It's like her feet don't touch the ground. She has nowhere to go and nowhere to land properly. Field hospital. A man, trying to save a wounded comrade, runs around yelling to wash the wound and bring a cloth. Under such circumstances, Cordelia had no time to think. She runs off, carrying hot water, then brings a cloth and bandages just in case. The other girls tensely watch her extravagant speed. Cordelia collects dirty clothes to take them to the laundry room. Her colleague praises her, saying that she makes it easier to do all the work here. It had been a week now since she had come to the emergency room. It was difficult at first, but it became much easier as she got used to it. Also, she realized something about herself. She was very good at her job, and she was very happy about that. In fact, nothing complicated, as the work here is quite simple. However, everyone just praised her. How beautiful she thought it was. The girls discussed Cordelia. They liked her eagerness. They had heard that she lived on a farm. She had come all the way here after hearing the news of the war. She came in with that blonde girl that is always by her side. They both look so young, but how brave they are for volunteering. Cordelia entered the laundry room carrying the dirty clothes. Melina thanked her. They needed more hot water, Melina assumed, and firewood. At the moment, they are in the castle of an earl named Ernest. Ernest County is the closest to the front line. In early July, the truce was broken, and the coastal village was the first to be hit. The damage was enormous, and there were many wounded and killed. On top of everything, with the Second War looming, Count Ernest opened the doors of his castle to imperial soldiers and began to actively participate in the war. Cordelia thought they would be outside since it was the emergency room. Melina replied that there was no need, since the Earl had authorized the use of his castle. Melina had heard that the commanders were camped in barracks near the front lines. It must be hard for them. The girls were doing laundry, and Melina noticed how well Cordelia was doing. Cordelia was very happy to be doing things on her own, and also happy to be able to help others because of what she was doing. She was glad she was here. Melina warned her friend that this was no time for her to relax. She had to stay alert. For her, it was like being in the middle of a battlefield. She would be in danger if the people of the Empire found out who she was. Cordelia didn't believe they could kill her. Everyone here seemed so kind to her. They praised them or said they were proud of them. Melina replied that it will be like that as long as people believe their tale about the village in the south. Don't underestimate people's hatred. Whatever she did, Melina asked her not to get caught. A woman entered, bringing more linens. Alice Meyer, a military nurse. She knew it was a hassle, but she would have to leave the laundry to them. She was so glad that the two of them had come to help them. It had been so much work here before. Cordelia asked how things were on the battlefield. Alice said that it was terrible. They had seen people here with wounds. Their wounds were so terrible that it was hard to help them in any way. They are lucky not to be disabled. Most of them can barely stand on their feet, all because of those filthy animals. Disgusting sea rats. Cordelia was very excited. She blanched and asked if she meant mermaids. Apparently she hated them intensely. She shrieked approvingly. Alice said she couldn't believe that such an insane race dared to come to this land. All they do is to prevent them, the humans, from living in peace. We should take the opportunity to exterminate every last one of them so that they would never be born again. Shocked, Cordelia wondered if that was really necessary. Alice said, since it was a topic of conversation, she thought the Emperor was too dismissive. She couldn't believe he'd let that girl live. It would have been better to take that wretch to the scaffold. And after beheading her, put her head on a spike so that everyone would realize that there was no mercy for monsters. A girl ran in and shouted that Alice should help disinfect the wound. She rushed off in a hurry. Melina was silent, looking at her pitifully. Cordelia said she would be careful. She was very upset, but she didn't show it. Melina was right. People wouldn't accept her just because she was of mixed blood. Cordelia was very frightened. She had been hearing bad things about mermaids for days. This anger of humans was beyond reasonable. She was here to prevent herself from dying in 2 years. In order to do that, they need to find out the reason why the Emperor is so concerned about her heart. It was incredible luck that the maids were talking about it that day. Thanks to them, she found out that the Empire was desperately looking for volunteers. She used this information to form a basic idea of what she should do. As the maids talked, she realized that the workers could be just as likely to run into mermaids as the military. So to meet them, you have to go to the front. If anyone is going to give Cordelia a clue about her heart, it's the mermaids. She encouraged herself by shouting, and suddenly Melina entered, inviting Cordelia to wash up. There was an awkward pause. In the bathroom, the girl explained that she was just trying to gather her thoughts.